but I don't necessarily feel comfortable having the Board of Education sitting next to me or sitting there. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. It's unusual. Normally, as you all know, I'm a pretty open guy and pretty transparent. This said, staff trainings are, for the most part, not controversial or sensitive. This topic is. Some teachers agree with it, some don't. And therein lies the tension, okay? Having a board training is in the works for this very topic. Staff training in the works, parent training in the works. So I think we've got all our bases covered, is my point. And they're gonna cover the FAIR Act, SETS law, they're gonna cover the various AB 1266, which is quite controversial, but even though it's been on the books for 30 years.
So here's what I'm hearing is, you had a suggestion, it looks like it's being taken care of, just for,
It's in the LCAP, you approved it.
so it looks like it's being taken care of.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion, it sounds like that's being taken care of. Spent a fair amount of time, I think there's at least 2 more subjects we need to get to by 4. So I don't know, are you okay with where we are?
Well, I just would like to be able to conclude where we are if we could, so.
I was trying to do that.
Well, thanks, I mean, you're probably helping to further that, so were you done with what you were saying?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I just want to, in response to what you were saying, say that as a result of yours and my conversation, this parent training in particular, this one is coming about.
Yeah,
And that's greater transparency.
Yeah.
So how can it be all bad?
No, I think, and I've thought this all along, and I've said this to you and I've said it to other members of the board. Parent education, parent training is very important. And in this particular environment, I think the more we can be explicit about what it is the law says and what we're doing, it's just a better way to go, even if there are people who are upset about it. And I think that's a very fair statement, and yes, certainly you contributed to facilitating that process. But you can see in the strategic direction, we had built in this idea of a parent education component.
Family.
It's just important, it's important.
Sure, but this is a specific thing, and of course, we have parent education right now.
Yeah,
This is a specific, and it's a very hot wired topic.
it is.
So if we weren't to go down this road, then the division between what the school knows and the parents don't know could widen.
That is a true statement, without question. And it is widening, even though I'm trying to kind of keep that going, but I think we're on the right track. I think you're gonna see in 23, 24, real efforts to, the hard part is, like we said earlier, it's like, how do we get busy parents to come, right? And that's gonna be my trick.
I'm gonna return to my sort of original question, because it was, rather than having more and more parent, nights, which make parents have to pick and choose what they're going to attend, is this something that could be included, or would you be comfortable with, or the board, including this in that family life parent night?
Well, I brought that question up, they said, yes, that's a place where we.
Well,
I think that'd be.
I'm asking everyone if that's something that feels that would be a time to address that. To talk about what the laws are.
Do you think it works well, Eric? I've never
Yeah.
been to a parent information night, I don't think. I should, I wasn't refusing to go, I just.
Yeah.
Well, this
Wasn't on my
one,
radar.
this would be a new one, it's
coming,
coming up,
yeah.
this is a new one, the family life parent
Yeah.
education night is new, so that's what I'm asking. I guess as someone who's helping to plan that,
Yes.
which is not us, which is you.
So I can envision a few things that I would envision wanting to, like a net, if you will, like I can capture some real important topics that I think parents should know about and would serve our interest in transparency. And one is family life, making sure elementary, middle, and high, because they're different kind of components. So I envision an elementary, a middle, and a high school parent series, as it relates to family life, as it relates to all issues related to gender, sexuality, that whole LGBTQ plus concept, AB 1266, that's law, fair act, all that jazz. Makes sense to me to capture that.
Oh, yeah, okay, and I hear that, but there's a whole lot of other subgroups that, and discrimination is huge in this community. So, you know, I understand the LGBTQ thing, but we've been,
But fair act isn't just the LGBTQ, fair act covers
and that's what I'm not hearing.
all genders,
What I'm
or all ethnicities.
Fair,
That's what
accurate,
I'm not-
inclusive, and respectful education.
Fair act is, yeah,
That's not what I'm hearing when you talk about the family life. All I'm hearing is a focus on LGBTQ. So what I'm asking then is, I have some, you know, some desires and likes also. And I think, you know, if we're
you
gonna
mean
focus,
like Pedro and Sandra in DEI training,
yeah.
which is the other
Exactly.
part I was gonna finish talking about.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Sorry.
Because you had mentioned efficiency and trying to get, so the whole point of windows and mirrors, are we truly representing our kids? Are we showing them that they see themselves in the school that they're attending, in the books they're reading? So I envision Sandra and Pedro doing a component of this. They're so good at the whole DEI component. They're very talented at it. And then I'd like to fold in the diverse literature that we've invested over $1 million in the last few years in our libraries to make sure that our kids have windows and mirrors when they walk into libraries, that they see themselves in the books. And we've worked hard at creating that. Very little fanfare, but when you walk into our libraries, you'll see authors of color. You'll see authors from all different kinds of walks of life reflected in the literature. And I think these are the things I envision happening in these, I call it a series. Like, I can only do so much, but I envision a series laid out, family life being one. I see the laws that govern us as an organization being another. I see DEI, windows and mirrors. Like, come see what we're doing.
Yeah.
And come check out the books. Come look at them. This is really good stuff. And at least let them see it for themselves. And by the way, we have a legal obligation to ensure our libraries have such things. And so it's really coming around, and the timing of this is good, is all I'm trying to say. The timing of it is excellent.
So you would foresee that the one night is not, it can't be done in one night. So it would be a series of parent meetings?
Because you might not be able to make one night, but you can make another. And if I can set it up in 2-hour or 90-minute blocks and do it over a semester and do a mirror of that in the next semester, I think you'd get more people. If I'm a parent that's busy, I want to go to that 6 to 7:30. I'm more likely to come than if you say 6 to 9. Right? That's just, I can't do 6 to 9, but I can do 6 to 7:30, be home by 8, bath, read a book, go to bed. But if you go 6 to 9, I'm gonna lose you.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking 90 minutes is a threshold that I think I found works best. It could be 5 to 7:30, could be, 5 to 6:30, it could be 6 to 7:30.
I like that.
So, I'm trying to balance this out, and yes, so Marilyn, that's what I'm envisioning a series.
Are
Trying to figure out
you
the best way to do
envisioning this happening at every school, or would it be like there would be a coastal series?
Right. Coastal City Series. Because we have 10 elementary schools, there's just no way, I can't do that. When we do literacy nights and math nights, it buries our people, right? It's just exhausting on everybody. But if we do a coastal and a city series, same trainers, same curriculum, same message,
be good.
Then if you miss the city one, you might wanna do the coastal one or vice versa. And I think we can figure this out. And I'll work on putting it together with my team before they retire.
That's good.
Got 'em up.
I know, I'm hustling.
So, I think there's other considerations. The best attended thing I ever saw, that was a parent night, was with a barbecue at Los Osos Middle School, that included childcare. And I think, and if you want, I'll give you suggestions, but
Yeah, yeah.
we don't even have to do the barbecue.
Childcare is a big one, and food.
And
Feed
reaching,
them and they will
reaching, and reaching the hard to reach parents.
Yeah. It's gonna be a thing, and practice civil dialogue along the way.
Oh, yes.
And that's what I'll be engineering into the system, so it doesn't become a shout down thing. Okay,
All right,
any other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Curtis.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
You bet.
Item number 3, how do we make the broader community more aware of the proactive strategies that we're implementing to enable 21st century learning and to close the achievement gap so that we have a broader base of support as one-time funding sources diminish? So it sounds like we're gonna be facing some budgetary issues with one-time money going wrong. How do we get the community more involved, perhaps even financially with our district? Is that the interest?
Is anyone interested in owning this and elaborating a little bit?
I wrote this.
Okay. Could you elaborate a little?
Well, yeah, so part of this came from my perspective joining the board this year. I've been a parent in the district for a long time. And been pretty active with the school district as a volunteer. And so when I got here, I didn't know MTSS existed, I didn't know iInnovate existed, but like, I was probably one of the more active parents in the community. I didn't know that those two programs that are pillars of our kind of recent innovation even existed. And it made me think that I think a lot of parents' frame of reference on the school district is often a decade or two old
Yeah.
when their kids went through. And we've done a lot recently to innovate. And then as I was thinking about that, we've done a lot with one-time funds that are going away. And I think there's a perception that I'm concerned that the community takes us for granted and doesn't necessarily know how much the district's done in recent years. And I think in the sense that one-time funding is gonna go away, that might actually lead to a bunch of struggles about some of those programs being pulled away. And I think there's a few topics here. One is I think there's an opportunity for us to show off how strong our leadership has been and make the community understand it better. I think that serves a couple of purposes. If we pair that with some awareness that one-time funding is going away, it makes the perspective on this discussion one of, hey, we've done a lot of good things, we have less money, now let's solve this together, as opposed to, I think we were getting foreshadowing in the earlier discussion that we've done all these cool things and we pair some of them back, people are gonna start screaming at us. But also I think that there's a path to securing other sources of funding. And I think if you look at business contributions, foundation contributions, we can help that entity grow with more public awareness of the things that we're doing.
Help the entity that is the foundation?
I think that's one part of it, but I mean, so I was thinking, what do we do if $10 million one-time funding goes away? We're not gonna have the foundation raise $10 million, that's just not a realistic goal. But on the flip side, I think our community doesn't even know that $10 million is going away. And there's all these things we've done with it that they don't know it's going away. So how do we make this a community problem and not a school district problem? And so I think there's two sides to it. How does it fit into this discussion around funding sources changing? But also, I think that our district has really strong leadership. I think one of Dr. Prater's strengths is this humility. And when you have a humble leader, they rarely toot their own horn. And I don't know that we toot our own horn particularly well. Like, I don't know that if you just lived in San Luis Obispo County, would you realize that San Luis Coastal has put programs in place that none of the other school districts have? Would you realize that we're innovating in a way that most school districts in the state are not, right? And the answer is, I think the average San Luis Obispo citizen doesn't recognize that and appreciate that. And I think there's actually a real importance to that being recognized over the next 5 to 10 years so that the district can succeed. That's where I was going from this. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
and it all makes really good sense. My only thing that I would say that is sort of rings on the parade a little bit is that they have twice voted our bonds. So
Oh,
I know that they feel like they're
I think
helping kids.
I don't think that the district doesn't support I don't think that the community doesn't support the district. I think the community supports the district. I think the community says the district's good. They take care of themselves. They're self-sufficient. We have a good school district. That they don't say we have a dynamic, innovative school district that's doing things that other districts are not, and we need to fight for that. And I think that's what we need in this next stage is
Okay,
this funding.
I see what you're saying. I agree.
And I said I was one of the more active parents, but like if you would have told me 6 months ago, I won't be,
Yeah,
but, you know,
There's a lot that people don't know, that we don't publicize.
So one of the things that often faces public entities and public education is there's a let's speak, let's be open, let's have everybody in the door. And then there's another one that says, I'm kind of scared if I expose myself too much that I'm going to attract not only the accolades, but also too much under the microscope. And
Too much attention.
Too much attention. And so that's sort of like the difference between Dr. Prater and some other superintendents, which by the way, I love that humility. And so I think it's just something to consider. I'm a total proponent of as much as we can. One of the things I think that we don't do well at all is reaching out with a lot of stuff that we have beyond our parent base. So I'm gonna just parent swear, I doubt we send it to anybody. I doubt the mayor ever sees Project Focus or parents communication or, and just, and we have this beautiful technology that we could use to do that. And that might be the first step towards that. This stuff, all this good stuff is written already. Eric sends it out on a regular basis, but I don't think we share it wide enough. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, I don't see it as being a whole lot more work or a whole lot more money to accomplish some of the stuff that Brian's saying. And I'm totally on board with it. Am I saying anything at all?
Are you?
Am I saying anything? Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
I'm just thinking.
yeah.
Are you suggesting, Brian, that maybe there's an advertising campaign or some sort of more public relations
I was
type of
thinking,
thing?
yeah, I was thinking about if we were a business, what would we do?
Right.
And yeah, I mean, so this is something Dr. Prater will not do on his own, I don't think, because I know other leaders like him that won't do it on their own, and again, I think that's a strength. But we are not, it's a public relations effort. And I think we do it on like the CSBA presentations. I look at the topics we're submitting. If you go to the CSBA conference and you look at the things we're talking on, I haven't been to one, but I assume we look like a pretty innovative school district, right? We're up there talking about, but we don't do that in our own community. And I don't know, maybe we do.
We don't, no, we don't.
But so you play that out and no, I think there's a public relations and there's engaging the business community strategy that could be developed, I think. And I don't know if it's the district or the foundation, and I don't want to just say it's the foundation, but I mean, the foundation's probably starting to do some of these things, right? I know whoever does it will benefit the foundation, right? I mean, if Christine Robertson was here, she'd probably like this idea, right? I would guess, right?
Yes.
But so I think it's networking into the local business community, organizations, it's giving regular coverage in, it's as basic as just like KSBY and the Tribune covering us regularly for the programs we're doing. Maybe they do a bit, but I mean, I feel like there needs to be something where the average citizen in our community goes, like if you walked up to an average person who's had a kid in the district and you said, what do you think of our school district? They'd probably say, it's really good. I support it. Like, because how's it different and special and how's it innovate? That's good. A I don't know what they'd say, but I mean, well, so I was having a discussion with Chris in the back of the bus when we did that tour around town, and he was talking about whether we were good or whether we were a great school district and what that meant even, and that kind of started this discussion in my head. What is a great school district? And I don't think it's one that like tests well. I think it's one that covers I mean, if you look at what we did this morning, I think we are a great school district, right? I think we're a great school district that's innovating in really unique ways with really strong leadership, and we come across as like a good, maybe I'm underselling this, but I think we're not fully appreciated, and I think we're gonna enter a period of time where we need to be appreciated in order to fight through some financial headwinds, and getting out ahead of that could help us.
And I'm just a facilitator here, but I can just share an anecdote. You know, I brought my little Rotary Club, which has some significant people in there, to a field trip instead of having a meeting. I said, let's go to Morro High School and look at what the bond
Measure
measure
D
has done. And to a person, they were blown away. They were just like, I didn't know that this happened. You know, I knew I'm paying for this, I knew I'd pass the bond measure, but to a person, it was like, why isn't the whole community showing up here and looking at this pool and this theater and this new, I mean, we need everyone in the entire district to be seeing this stuff, and it's
And
because.
we have had occasions
Yeah.
where we have invited.
And I just made it
so
part of
few
my
people
mission to
have
say,
shown up.
instead of having a meeting and having breakfast and networking, we're gonna go here in the morning and have a tour of this new school. And we probably need more of that stuff, because I can tell you right now, every member of that Rotary Club still talks about Morro High School, as if it's the greatest, this is like the greatest high school I've ever seen. And you're
Right,
you
and
probably
it's-
don't have enough of that.
Well, but, so take that a step further, 2 years from now, we're in a funding
Right.
constraint, you go to those Rotary members, you say, you know that stuff you saw at Morro
Yeah, it's
High?
going away.
We have to fight for that in the community, would
Right.
you be willing to fight for that? And then we start to get a much bigger
Right.
business community backing what we're doing. So it's not gonna solve our budget problem, but it could, it'll decrease the amount of negative flag that comes in, and it'll also create some additional funding, it'll strengthen the foundation, yeah.
So they're just, I mean, I'm thinking statewide, it is far and few between that a school district does not have a paid professional that does this. And it's often a position that's linked to a grant writer. So not only are they out building this kind of relationship, but they're also looking for money. And I'm 100% behind this, because it's absolutely right. We're gonna reach a point at some point where we're gonna need, so if you think of PR sort of scales, right? And what's good is good, and then it gets this, and then you all suddenly get some situation that's bad. You need to somehow have it balanced out somehow. So I think we're long overdue for figuring out a way to do this.
You know, I don't know if you mentioned it, but KFB1 might be a way.
Public announcements.
Yeah, you know.
Being in the news regularly just was,
You know what they do, that the more you know, they used to do that, the more you know, and they have somebody come on and say that, shoot. We could do, it would probably open it up not just for our district, but for all the districts around here, but having some sort of a short weekly, you know, just a little thing. Reporter gets out there and they're gonna cover something, just a little short, like
I think
2-minute thing here.
it's branding the district as an innovator that's helping the local community, yeah.
We have done that, I think, very effectively with food service,
With what?
with food service,
Oh,
with Erin Primer and her farm to table programs, and yeah, it's gotten some exposure.
So, I'm sorry, so Rob, I hear what you're saying. The problem is that they're not gonna assign somebody to do it weekly, they're really short staffed. And so just, it's more, I think it's more complicated, I think it's more like what Brian's talking about, unless you're gonna be willing to pay for it. So public notices are gone. They will rarely, if anything, do them. And if you can tell me the last one you saw, I'd be happy to take back what I said. And any public notice in the newspaper, people are paying for the whole section. So it becomes a real, one of the things that Erin's really good at is public relations. The other thing Erin's really good at is she has something what to say. So we're really good at having something to say. But what Brian's talking about is we never say it as a district. And I'm not sure that we have the skill set to say it. And so, I don't think,
No, I think it's taking a public relations strategy, picking a set of programs that we think position us as innovators. And I think CTE learning, I think I Innovate, I think MTSS, I think there's a bunch of things we're doing that could be packaged. And you're right that all the news sources are understaffed, so you basically have to write 80% of the message, but if you can give them a, hey, here's good news that's happening at Morro High, here's good news that's happening at our local elementary schools, here's something San Luis Obispo does that other communities in California don't do. Like, I think that could get covered and that could help us.
and if I can just jump on, what Rick is describing is a fairly common campaign that's called, it's sometimes called key communicators. So Rick has a group that is made up of key communicators, right? These are people that are at least willing to sit through a Rotary meeting and hear from people. And then they go out to the community and they become the experts and they share it. And so done strategically, you don't even have to buy, you don't have any people, even having a press release, because the people will do it for you.
It's a big part of the foundation's work, I think, right now.
The whole foundation.
Do that very thing.
The community action group. I think Eric's positioned us really well. The parent leaders positioned us really well to have that group that will actually go tell our story. And again, it's not going to be hard to find the material because it's in Project Focus. Eric does a good job communicating. It's in the staff newsletter. It's in our CSBA presentations. It's there. It's just, how do you share it now that you have it?
It sounded like you were gonna say something.
Oh, right. I was thinking, just now I was thinking about something else. Let me get back there. Thank you.
Rick, do you think that the foundation has a role in that?
Well, I just got off the foundation board, but yeah, I think that a big part of their focus is exactly that the word Mark used of finding the key communicators, so the key communicators through service organizations and business leaders and chambers of commerce, some of those kinds of things as a way of broadcasting the foundation's work. And the foundation's work isn't necessarily the district's work, it's hand in hand, but it's a big part of their push right now because it's fundraising. I bet there's some hand-in-hand stuff we can do down with Christine and that group.
I wanted to say, Brian, that the MTSS was done by Lucia Marr, and it still is before it was.
No, I know we're not the only ones that do it.
Yeah, we'd have to know. I mean, we could say we're doing things other districts aren't doing, because there are other districts that are not doing it. So, I mean, that's not a big
I think
point.
it would be hard pressed to say there's another district in our county that is across the board as innovative as we are if you combine, I mean,
That's right.
maybe I'm very biased,
Yeah,
but
I'm so glad.
MTSS is one piece on that, but I mean, but, so I mean, it's possible we're one of the more innovative districts in the state.
I think so.
And the only thing that stops you from being considered that is you have to say it, right?
It's fine. Let's go ahead and toot that horn.
Yeah, so I don't know what the next step is specifically, I mean,
Well, I think Eric is most likely listening in to what's going on.
he's not in here, but he's on the TV.
He can hear us. I don't know.
Yeah, so.
I didn't think I thought he would think that was easy.
So are you looking?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it would have been good to have him in this discussion somehow.
You can ask him.
So,
She will.
well, I don't know that we need to have, yeah.
I don't think we don't need to bring him in and redo the discussion if he's listening, we can tell him what's
But we
recorded.
don't know that. We don't know that, Brian. We may not know.
But either way, he'll hear what occurred here.
Still here.
So I know we're just doing general
Yeah, these
discussion, but I often go to action, and so I apologize, but we have a lot of board subcommittees that do stuff. There's also a thing called task force, which has a time specific, so within 2 months, you have to be done. And this is a huge topic, I mean, this is really huge. I don't know, something bad could come up, and we need to be prepared, not only for the good stuff, but we also need to be prepared to how we're gonna handle the bad. And that's possibly having game plans and having somebody professional. So
I mean, this is.
I just throwing it
discussion
out,
now, yeah.
2 months, let's see what we're gonna do.
Well, one more thing on that, as I became a new board member, researched what other districts are doing in different parts of the country, and it seems that the school districts that are high functioning are becoming more or less community centers and having a lot of CTA entrepreneurship. Their students are partnering with business, they're in apprenticeships, and that's something I have a great interest to. That's why I said I like what you said. Everybody here has got great ideas, and this is one that you're fleshing it out now more, one that I ran on actually in my campaign too.
Okay.
So, yeah, there are specific districts that are much more partnered with their surrounding communities than we are. We could look at those models too.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe the next step is to ask Dr. Prater, to work with us on a public relations strategy or an innovation, or I don't know, you maybe capture it how you think it makes sense.
I'll capture it.
Is that,
Put it in notes.
I'm sensitive to like creating another hired role, unless it pays for itself, like a grant writer could pay for itself. Public relations strategy though. I feel like it's an area he probably needs to be pushed because he's not gonna go out and look for accolades for himself. Like, I just don't think he will as a person, because it'll look like, I mean that very positively.
it's not a
if he's
grand
watching.
standard.
Well, no, it's one of his strengths, right?
No, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
no, I agree with you.
And one of the interesting things is Eric spends a lot of time doing PR. So like I said something the other night, where he was at an event, it took 15 minutes for him to get out of the room. Often, that type of position is used to work in the community on behalf, and so it might save us, Eric, some stress and some time and some shoe leather. It's often a position that often rewards itself. Well, discussion for another day. I got it.
Well, the flip side though is if we're successful at this, the presentations he wants to give at CSBA will be giving in the local community.
Exactly.
He'll have to present more, he'll get more shoe.
Okay. Yep.
Well, he gave that presentation on how to schedule your year, a function, I mean, the community doesn't have to know about that. There's other things that he could present that the community would benefit by, but I was gonna say, Ellen, is it against board policy to have board members represent
Yes.
this?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, we'll get there, because we actually have,
Oh, yeah,
we printed out
number
the bylaw.
5.
As individuals, it would be
Yeah,
a challenge to do that, challenge yourself. Okay, item number 4, let's move on. But I'm gonna capture that
You got it.
to Eric, that.
So Brian, do you feel that was covered?
Yeah, that was good, I'm just gonna go back to real fast.
Okay, but you're good with your topic?
Good, yeah, you guys understand, I mean, we all
Yeah, yeah,
understood,
Yeah, okay, thank
I'll
you.
be right back.
Okay,
I'll move on, or do you wanna wait?
yeah, no, I
Have
think
a break?
he said he was
Okay.
satisfied. Oh, does everyone want a break, or
Sure.
I can
you
use.
want a break?
Okay, let's break for 5 minutes, let's just break for 5 minutes.
Good job, Rick. Good job.
We have 2 topics, so let's just break for 5. So we're doing it.
So I'm gonna.
Okay, I was trying to
Okay,
heat up my coffee, start without
that's
me.
all right.
I won't miss my.
All right,
You won't
so
miss much.
bullet number 4.
Board interest 4, or board member interest 4. Continue effort to provide a learning environment that displays respect by all staff and students toward all, we have the gamut of things, and provide adequate ongoing professional development to all employees that reflect our evolving society and need for openness, compassion, and equity. So this is an interest to keep doing what we're doing, but
Kind of ties in with Brian's a little bit, I
Right.
think. So this was mine, and it was more, it's very brief. I don't see, I mean, personally, I don't see a reason to go into a lot of detail. It was more just
It's not highly
a
controversial.
reminder. It's, pardon me?
It's not highly
I
controversial.
hope not. If it is, we're in trouble. But I think it ties in, it meshes, Brian, with some of what you were saying with thinking, you know, not just what we have been doing, what we're doing now, but also, you know, that evolving society piece that, you know, I appreciate that we are much more, well, we are more forward-looking than many districts. I think there's that piece that I feel we do differently. We're not looking back and saying, we want the world to be the way it was when I was in school. You know, we're not looking and saying, you know, we acknowledged that things are changing, both academically. I mean, you know, years ago, I thought, you know, I wouldn't be able to get into the college where I went to college if I were to apply now. And now, you know, I look today and I think my kids wouldn't be able to get into the colleges they went to. You know, I mean, I actually texted my daughter during lunch and said, how many AP classes did you take? Because I couldn't remember. It wasn't 10. She took a few, but
There
you
might not have
know,
been 10.
she would, well, but even if there were, she would not, you know, and part of that was parent driven. You were not going to spend your life in AP classes.
Yeah.
There's more to life than the school did. So I think that I really appreciate that we are thinking about the way things are now and trying to anticipate what's coming down the road, you know. So it was more just remembering that. It was, for me, it was kind of a placeholder that I remind myself of these things often, that this is what we're doing. And it's important, and my own ethics and personal who I am aligns with this. So that's all. It's not really a big discussion.
On that topic, how do you feel like, I mean, what do you think we can do as a board to continue to be a forward-looking board? Are there things we should, like, is there some self-reflection we should make, you know, in this forum about how we succeed in this area?
Yeah, I would say that one of the things we do is, it's a way I appreciate the relationship with the foundation. Because in innovation, you know, they are looking out to see what's coming down the road and informing us of that. You know, we've had meetings that the board has been invited to at ACI, you know, that were, we could hear about these things, their reports to us, like the next gen. I think some of those things are really important that we can't, it's hard, it's just learning, being aware of what's happening and providing what's necessary to our staff and to everybody, to teachers, about this is what's coming down the road. You know, I mean, I'm sure teachers lament that we don't teach cursive in elementary school anymore. It's like, well, we have these other things that we're doing now, you know. So I think it is informing that these are things that have changed, how do we feel about them, you know, that because the world is so different, that I'm grateful that we're acknowledging the depth and breadth of demographics and populations in our society and reaching out to try and meet more needs on that personal level. But then in terms of anticipating job growth and market growth and where opportunities lie, I know we've done a lot with CTE. I also don't want to lose sight of the fact that we have a huge teacher shortage in this country that has to do with college. We have a huge big lack of medical providers at all levels. I know where CTE can address some of that, but not all, and that college is still a really important, a very important necessity to some careers, and I don't wanna lose sight of that. So I think it is just, again, the PR piece, but also gathering information from the business community as to what they're looking for, what they anticipate their needs may be in the future, what those jobs are gonna look like. So, and how we can plan for that, and what we need to do. So, does that answer your question?
Anything else?
Yeah, see, that
Okay.
one was easy.
That's easy. We're doing well. Well, the next one is a really good way to cap the day off, I think, it sounds like. And that has to do with topics that have actually come up a couple times, which is board governance and sort of, and I see two parts in this. What is the role of a board member, of an individual board member? And it sounds like also in this interest is how can you be more efficient in your actual board meeting times? Is that what am I reading that right?
And this came actually from, this is a combination of two people's interest.
Okay.
So I smushed them together because they both had to do with board governance.
All right.
Mine was, what is the role of a board member? That was my topic.
And Chris Thungers, I'll just put him out there, whether I have a feeling he would, own it, was about the meeting efficiency.
The actual board meeting efficiency.
Board meeting efficiency, yeah.
So role of a board member, which I know that we have policies
We
on.
do, but, sometimes I think it's good just to, remind ourselves that we have no authority, other than as a collective. And that, there are certain things that we're responsible for. The budget, approving the budget, hiring the superintendent. Help me out, and what else? Those are two main things.
Approving curriculum and instruction, being on the balcony and not on the dance floor.
But we land on the dance floor a lot, I think. We get in the weeds and it's really not our purview. It's an area that, we should be having more of an oversight view than a functional view of, we are the what, we're not the how.
And we're a we, not an I.
And where are we, not an I? So if anybody has any thoughts on the role of a board member, that was just my thing, that I thought, sometimes we really do get in the weeds.
Is it your
and not go
sense,
there.
Marilyn, 'cause that's probably helpful for everyone, that we've had some issues with individuals getting away from that? From that collective,
Yes.
we.
Yes, I think we have, and I think that also things got kind of confused or bollocksed up when we went to by trustee area voting. And that we lost sight of the fact that remains the fact that even though you're elected by the few, you represent the many. So whatever your particular trustee area is that elected you, you still are responsible for all of the students in the district. And that's something I think the public may have a bit of a hard time understanding as well. Like,
If they understand trustee areas.
Can I ask a
if they understand it all, yeah.
So we went to smaller districts, so I think in mine there's 12,000 people or something. There's one school site, but then there's students in Church Lake to Laguna to San Luis High. I think it's given people the feeling that they now have one person they can talk to who basically supposedly lives in their community. And so I see that as big, it's sort of like the House of Representatives is whatever, 300, the Senate, something else. And they all represent the United States as a whole, but they bring forward their community's concern, then it comes to the board, and the whole board votes on topics. And so a board member might bring forward something from their community, but then it becomes the responsibility of the board to vote as a whole to make that decision. So I guess what I'm asking is, are you saying, or what I'm asking is, so if let's say it was me and somebody said, I want all the fences to be blue, and here's why, and I thought it was worthwhile carrying it forward, that I would not carry that forward? Is that a concept?
Well, you carry it forward, but it's just recognizing that you represent everybody.
But that's.
So you don't just go to one school and attend all of their functions, or, you know, we are elected to exercise our best judgment, I think, in behalf of the public, for all students, for what affects all students.
So can I add something?
Please do.
I just wanna say, one of the things I'm really happy about that our district did as a whole, as a board, is we were very clear in determining the trustee areas that we wanted overlap. So I go into Hawthorne, I go into Los Ranchos, and I go into Monarch Grove. Now, it may just be a little toe in each of those others, but it was really important to the board to not have one trustee representing only one site. So, you know, we also have kids who go to teach. So if I have a Steele Smith kid, you know, Steele Smith is in my area, it's in Mark's area. But if kids go to teach, you know, they're still my kids, and kids who don't go to Steele Smith are still my kids. Kids who go to Del Mar, they're my kids, as far as I'm concerned. So I think that still, you know, someone from Del Mar could contact me and say, I want the fences to be blue. And I would take that as seriously as if someone from Steele Smith came to me and said, I want the fences to be blue. So I think I still want to be available to everyone. And I hope that the public feels that as well. So I don't know if that adds anything to that little piece.
Well, it's great explanation, I appreciate it. I don't know how the public perceives this by trustee area thing, I really don't. I know I've got Baywood, Del Mar, Los Osos Middle School, and Morro Bay all in mind, and we did try to create, specifically to create it so that there would be overlap.
Right. And to keep the demographic.
So I have no overlaps. I have one school whose kids matriculate. And I'm not saying that individual board members would not be available. I'm just saying that the public now, the ratio of parents to board member has come down. And I've experienced now some people are saying, you're Hawthorne's board member, right? Because there's an elected, I guess it's a city council person who has a district. Just saying.
So when someone said to you, you're Hawthorne's board member, what was your response?
I'm more than happy to carry your thing forward, but I visit lots and lots of schools. And I do. I visit schools throughout the district. But I'm more sensitive now to the 12,000 folks that specifically put their vote to me. In the past, it was at large. I personally think that was probably better, but we're now in this system. And it may take us a little longer to kind of to come to grips with that. The other thing, I guess that's the other thing. I just feel like, I'm just honestly, I think I owe it more to work hard for that one school site. And then owing it and doing more for it means carrying that message more than I used to carry. I mean, I had someone from the coast that was at a board meeting and said, thank goodness you're listening to me because I felt like I wasn't being listened to. I don't know what the circumstance was, that was the comment. Doesn't matter.
I think it's unfortunate though that we ended up with a trustee area that only had one school.
I don't know, I didn't ask for it.
Well, and
Trust me.
is it, incorrectly, because I don't really know this, but the decision to go to election by trustee areas was driven largely by lawsuits.
Yes.
Up and down the state, right?
Yep.
About ensuring that, especially with regard to ethnicity, and that you made sure you had people from every segment of your community
To avoid racially polarized.
to avoid, everyone living here or racially polarized. So I don't think it had anything to do with representation of schools. It had to do with assuring that there is representatives coming from all aspects of the community. Like, I could be wrong on that.
But that's representing school and representing the community. I think that you're exactly right. And sometimes that comes down to a school or one neighborhood.
So I just looked at the map real quickly, Mark,
Sure.
and you've got Pacheco,
Right,
so you don't include you don't have just Hawthorne.
Great,
And
and
you reach into Pacheco, and then those kids also, all kids in all our areas then hopefully go to a middle school that may or may not be in our area, in a high school,
and I appreciate that, I forgot, but yeah.
but yeah, you've
I
got,
spend a lot of time at Pacheco as well. I think there's just a different perception, but when I come to this table and I'm looking at the budget, for example, I'm looking at how we spend funds effectively for everybody.
Right.
So it's a matter of, am I carrying a message for a small community? Yes. Am I looking at my job as representing everybody? Most certainly. And so I think that that's just a small distinction between maybe myself and maybe where someone else is right now. But I'm very happy with that. Very happy with that.
In terms of the public perception of the districts, I've just been talking to people in my neighborhood and district. I found, because my district's never gone through a public election under the district system, it was
That's right.
in 2020, it was under the old paradigm, virtually no one knows there's districts in my neighborhood. Like, I think if they, probably in yours they do, because they had an election in 2022, but I don't think people are gonna fully appreciate the districts the way that they've been through.
well, I was told for years, now frequently after every election cycle, I voted for you. And I've never been on the ballot, because I've never been opposed. And people would say, oh, I'm glad you were reelected, I voted for you.
You even got,
And I would say,
you even got,
You never-
I definitely voted for you then, Alan.
Thank you.
you got
I'd always
endorsements this time. I'm like,
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, so I think that even, and a lot of these are people who were parents and pay attention, but they would just say, oh, you're still on the board, I'm
It's
so
just
glad
because
I voted for
they
you.
know your face and, because it happens to me too, and I know that son of a bitch lives in Rob's area. But if they wanna say they voted for me,
I definitely
Okay.
voted for you too.
I wasn't, oh, you voted for me too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Man,
Well, I
so
will
funny.
just reference, there is in your, bylaws, it says the board member represents and acts for the community as a whole, and does not represent any factional segment of the community. I mean, that's what the policy says.
it governs us.
I mean, I'm new, but I feel like everyone has the perspective of the whole district in mind.
Right.
I haven't been to too many meetings where I'm like, oh, that person's really just got an axe to grind for their
Absolutely.
district. I don't hear anyone ever talk about their district. I mean, so,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm new.
Anything else about the role of individual board members that you want us to talk about
I have a comment
before we go
about
to the
this.
other topic of meetings?
meetings, wait, I thought we were still gonna do board,
We are,
who speaks for the
Role
board?
of the,
Okay.
role of individual board members.
For me, the hardest thing is every 4 years, for the last whatever, 16, I've had to say, I don't, you can ask me a question, I'll give it to the superintendent, I'll pass it along, but I'm only one of 7 board members. Right, just the absolute answer that I need to give, have to give, should give.
Yeah.
But then the campaign comes up and it's like, oh no, I believe in CTE and you should vote for me because, and it's like, that for me, that's the hardest thing because for whatever, 6 months, you've gotta be outspoken about your beliefs, what you think you're gonna try and do, what you're gonna try and accomplish, and then boom, like the day after the election, you have to switch back to, I'm only one of 7 board members. Oh, and by the way, you're asking me to come speak to your organization, I could come speak as an individual, but the president of the board is the appropriate person to come speak to your organization, like if you got invited to the Rotary. Good, right now, see,
I
that's,
think you're right.
no, I mean, it's, and I'm, I love the talk, so it's like, somebody invites me, I'd love to go talk. But normally I say, call Dr. Prater. Call Dr. Prater. So for me, that may be where the confusion comes in. When do I speak for myself and when do I speak for the board?
Yeah, it is hard when you're campaigning. I think you just have to put it out there. These are the things that I value. This is what I think is important. This is why I support public education, whatever. It's about me, and then once elected, it's about us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like,
And I think there are things you can say, this is what I bring to the board, but the board you can do both at the same time. These are the topics, these are the values I have, I raise them at board meetings, and then it is up to the board as a whole to make decisions regarding these topics. So I think saying, I'm gonna make sure this is, this will happen.
For you.
Yeah, we can't say that. We can't say, I'm gonna make, I'll make, we can't do that, but we can definitely say, I have a value of culture of care. I'm particularly interested in equity. When those items come up before the board, I have a lot to, and these are things that the board takes action on and I participate in. I mean, I'd like to see us make changes in this regard, but it's up to the board as a whole. I mean, I think there are ways to do both.
I think that last piece didn't mention, it's up to the board to make the final decision.
Yeah.
It's up to the board.
Yeah.
I think that's the key.
Yeah, and I think if we throw that in there, then we're covered. I mean, hopefully it won't be anything that is so new and different that, it's gonna startle everyone when it comes up. It's just in the way we do business, these are the things I support and put forward, and hope to accomplish, but it's up to the board.
Okay, anything else on that part of that topic? Second part, which is I think you said Chris had brought up, which was conducting efficient meetings and providing adequate time for public comment. So it doesn't extend the meeting length. And he's not here to talk about that, so I'm just throwing it out there as a topic.
Never seen that.
I've never seen what happened.
Well, it did when I was running. There was one meeting that went till 3 in the morning. I don't think it was public comment. There's a demo in my set back then. But I'm not sure what Chris means by public comment.
I think, and I don't wanna speak for him, but I think some of it has to do with, some of it was what was brought up recently, is that, if the public has a particular item they are interested in addressing before the board, and the rest of the meeting is going long, partly because of board discussion, they feel that they don't wanna, they can't stay up, they can't, or I've had people say to me, I had to watch it on Zoom because I couldn't, and I wanted to participate, I had to watch it the next day, or later, because the item I wanted to talk about, came up too late.
So the board's
So I misunderstood this topic.
Okay,
I misunderstood. I thought this was about public comment going too long, so
No,
when,
it's about the meetings going.
so we're back on, I thought we
Yeah.
settled this the other day
I
at
don't-
the board meeting. I thought we put a time limit on board meetings.
Well,
We voted on it.
this was raised as an item of discussion,
Got it.
so.
So it sounds like it's so you have a period at the beginning of the meeting where you say, now we're gonna accept some public comment. And also after each agenda item, it's
Right,
been
and
the
at
board's
the
practice to say, does anyone in the public want to comment on this? And if the meeting is going late, those members might have already left because they're like, oh, I can't.
Yeah,
Okay.
and at the beginning of the meeting, we generally say, this is for public comment, an item on the agenda, or for anything not on the agenda. However, if you want to speak to an item on the agenda, you can wait until that comes up. So they think, oh, it's only 3 items down, I'll wait. Or, 5 items down, and then they can't wait that long, that changes, and they haven't been able to say what they wanna say. So, and I guess, part of this under, where is it? On the role of a member, talks about being prepared and, asking, doing all of that. I don't remember this section now, but it's in here somewhere. I don't know, should study all agenda obligations of board members. So it's basically being, coming in and ready to do business of the board. And I think that leads to efficient meetings. So.
On this topic, I think the challenge I've had is like on the study sessions when we go really long. Like I've had situations where I had meetings back at work that I am like in the study session canceling. And so figuring out how to, the midday stuff's harder for me than the night stuff. But I've had a couple of situations where I've had to like cancel work meetings because we're going long. So and I think I talked to Alan about it, I was like, should I just go to my meeting? Should I cancel it? Should I not schedule meetings? Are these really 3 hours? Are they really
So I think
5 hours?
that's a good point, it's being respectful of our time and of the public's time and, staff time and all of that, so.
Yeah, so it's maybe just sticking generally to the meeting, close to the hours for the meeting, like if it's 10 to 1,
Yeah,
So there's always the opportunity to say it to, I can't remember the words now, and it's like, I move to end this, you end the discussion to a time specific, and then it has to happen if the rest of the board votes with you. We don't have to necessarily finish the work of those that's at that specific meeting, that specific day, unless I guess it's something like this thing that Ryan had today, where it was like super important. So I've never felt like I had to finish the meeting finish the topic that was on. So if we now have a time specific, right? What was it, 5 hours that we voted on? I can't remember. And we're not done with our business, it can be carried over. I mean, especially if it's not something that's time critical. And I can't remember the motion that's normally made to make that happen. So I'm wondering whether we all feel like we have to finish a topic that night if it's not critical.
I would say if we possibly can, and by looking at the meeting agenda to have all my questions answered in advance, so that I can say, thank you for answering my questions, I'm fully prepared to deal with this topic now.
So this brings up a really interesting question. If I have a lot of questions ahead, or if I have questions ahead, do I interrupt a person's their staff day during the day when they have stuff on their agenda, stuff that they need to get done? So then if the other 6 board members also need to talk to that same staff person, we have now interrupted that person 7 possible times, possibly with the same question, right? And is that more efficient than bringing those questions to the board meeting? And which is being more sensitive to the staff members' time?
But you often indicate, Mark, at meetings that you spent a
So-
lot of time with people already, so I
And
guess.
you're absolutely right. And so at one point, when I was early on the board, I said something like, oh, I was talking to so-and-so, I'm talking to so-and-so, and I was told by the board, you shouldn't be interrupting their day. Save your questions for the board meeting. Then that changed, and then that direction changed again.
No, the direction didn't change, it's just that you were asking the questions of staff during the day and then asking the same questions of staff at night,
Exactly.
which prolongs the board meetings.
Exactly. And so the question is if I ask a question whether all the buses are yellow, and I hear that, well, not, they're actually a shade of tan, the question I have then is, does the rest of the board need to know that? Does the public need to know that? I had a question, it was answered, but I'm only one board member. It could have been a question that maybe it should have been asked in public, because it's a public necessity to hear that. And
I
so
think
I'm
that
very-
happens occasionally, but not consistently.
Okay, I think we're just gonna disagree on this. I'm not gonna stop asking questions.
Yeah, we might disagree on it, I mean, because I am personally, it is really rough for me, some meetings,
Yeah.
Mark, I gotta say.
Really rough one.
Well, when you ask for permission to speak,
Mhm.
and then you ask 12 questions.
Mhm.
It's like, what the hell, ask one, ask two, give somebody else an
Oh,
opportunity.
okay, sorry. I thought I was doing that more and more. I apologize. Yes, I'm trying to be sensitive to that. And I thought, I don't know, Ellen's right. I really thought that I was saying, okay, and looking at Ellen and saying if there's anybody else. And many times Ellen will just say, go ahead. So I am truly trying to be very sensitive to that.
But I guess my question is, is to take, and you don't have to, I mean, we're all individuals,
talking.
is to take a cue that if you're asking 12 and everyone else has maybe just 1 or 2 questions, I mean, 12 is an exaggeration,
Oh, whatever.
5 or 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
That, if there's a way to truncate, especially if you already have that information, to reiterate,
So-
that it isn't always, and especially when there are, if anyone from the public, there are 1 or 2 people, paying attention or watching, that maybe it's not necessary to ask as many questions.
And I appreciate that. And there was one night I was asking my questions, and it was actually Marilyn who said, oh, I had actually thought about that. And you went ahead and spoke to the question and how it was an important question. So I don't know how I pick and choose between when I'm gonna hit one of those, or when I think that there's a clarifying question that needs to be asked in public. So what you're not aware of is lately, especially lately, I've been going and talking to someone, and I literally tell that person, like Leslie or mostly Kate. So that's a question I'm gonna ask in public. And then I don't ask the 20 other questions that I have anymore. So I apologize, I'll try to be more sensitive to it. I will definitely ask one question and then we'll keep going and say, is there someone else, or I have more questions, because I thought I was doing that. But I don't know. I find that, maybe I'm so full of myself, but I think some of those questions just need to be asked publicly. That's just the way I feel. But I'm definitely not doing 12 in a row.
And you can do this however you wish. I mean, I will sometimes call staff and say, this isn't clear to me, and when it's explained, say, you might wanna fold that into your presentation.
Exactly what I said.
And then I don't have to ask a question,
Oh,
it's
I see.
answered, then they fold it in. I would rather have them take credit personally for a full and complete presentation
I hear what you're
than
saying.
my saying, I have a question. So, I've done that before. Could you, if you're comfortable including this into your presentation, that'd be great, because you can do it in a minute instead of being recognized, asking a question.
Okay, I can certainly do that. I didn't wanna tell staff what to do, but the way you're saying it is better than I would have said it, so I can ask it that way. I just feel there's some questions I'm still gonna ask publicly, just to ask them. I think they're important. Sorry, but I like that way of doing it.
Yeah, Rob, you have something to say?
Well, I thought I was doing staff a favor by asking questions so that they could prep
Yes,
before
that's more, that's how.
the meeting.
Yeah,
That's what I'm doing, yeah.
so Rick is, as a former
Yeah.
person making presentations, you're nodding.
Well, it's just an interesting thing, meeting times, because, it's, no one wants to be in a long meeting, I don't think, or anyone wants to be in a long meeting.
No, thank you.
You guys, board members, staff, no one wants, parents, they don't want, you want a meeting to be contained in a period of time, and so in that interest, I know that at least at the cabinet level, when you're discussing board items, it's kind of like, okay, let's spread this stuff out, we can only do this presentation this week because this is gonna be a big one, and we're gonna have to say those board policies and those little things, we'll move them, and then they meet with, the superintendent turns around the same day, meets with the president and clerk and says, okay, here's what we got on the plate, what do you think, can we get all this done, is this gonna take too much time, and so knowing that board members the day before, or the day of, we're gonna call, we all knew that, we all know we're gonna get calls from board members, because they're getting their packet, they're reading their stuff, and then they're gonna call and say, yeah, I have a question about this, I have a question about that. And I think to a person, we'd rather have that during the day than, and also the heads up.
That's
Also, it's a heads up, it's like,
That's the
oh,
key.
this wasn't clear, we need to make this clear tonight.
Yep, that's the key.
But to not have to have that night go on forever, because we're still showing up at 7 o'clock the next morning, so to have that night go on forever, is rough.
Well, let me ask a question then. Oh, so go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that, sometimes I've sent an email to a staff member and I'll say, and I would like to bring that question up.
Mhm.
So it prepares.
Right.
Right,
It's good.
So let me ask you a question then. Part of the lateness sometimes could be the way that the agendas are appearing. So sometimes it feels like we have a very light agenda. It's pretty lightweight, and we all know it's lightweight. And then like the last one we just had, the LCAP, the budget, and there was something else that I thought was pretty heavy topic. And so I think that tends to also make the meeting go longer. So I just hope that we can figure out a way to also spread the heavies out. Because the budget, $140
sometimes
million.
it's a function of the time of year,
I totally got it,
Yeah. So,
but $140 million budget, I think that's worthy of some public discussion. The LCAP, I think that's worthy of public
and that's why in
discussion.
May we were starting an hour earlier, that combined with the things we need to do with staff retirements and, that sort of thing, but we've started our meetings an hour earlier through the month of May. But, and I do think, it's people who have jobs, all the staff, yeah, you do, I do, Brian does, it does, I think it's having that respect for everybody's time and what everybody has to do, as well as the public who gets up in the morning
And I'm not
and
trying
has
to be
things to do.
critical, but fortunately or unfortunately, when I ran for the board, I kind of knew what the commitment was going to be, right? I read all the agendas prior because I was, I had questions that I made that had to, and I set aside the time that I had to. And so, I don't schedule, to be honest, I don't schedule anything the whole day of a board meeting.
Well, you're fortunate, I don't have that,
No,
I don't have that
I'm-
luxury.
No, I mean, like, if we have a 10 to 1
I still
study,
work.
if we have a 10 to 1 study session, I will likely have, if not a 1 p.m., probably a 1:30 and a 2 o'clock meeting on the books after that, and I'll make sure I don't have a conflict unless a customer forces me into that 10 to 1 window. So I kind of just try to do it both ways, like if we say 10 to 1, I'm gonna open up after 1
Yeah.
to my job, and 10 to 1 I'm not going to, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a valid expectation. I mean, I'm like you, meetings are planned that I don't always have control over. I have control over my time to some extent, but I don't have the luxury of saying I don't work on the first and third Tuesday of the month.
That's,
I don't get to do that,
yeah,
so I think it is
say it on
that,
board, I just don't get
well,
meetings.
I don't, but I don't have, meetings are planned around me at times or other commitments or obligations. I mean, and I think there are people out there who would like to do this work, who have sought, when I first got on the board, I had a traditional job, I was not allowed. You know, I was told you cannot be gone at these times. And I don't think that's unacceptable, you know, I don't think that's unheard of, you know. My life was very different my first 5 years on the board because I had a traditional job. I couldn't go on boardwalks, I couldn't attend study sessions, I just was not able to do that because I needed to put food on my table. I have been the primary breadwinner of my house for a lot of years, so I think that having that expectation that my life will revolve around the school board, or anyone will, is unfair to the public who would like to sit on a position like this. So I think it is that I'm much more fortunate now, I do have some flexibility, but certainly not total flexibility.
I don't think 5 years ago we had study sessions, just because we started those with measure, whether it's C or D.
Well, we had some early on because they used to be about things like school site safety plans, and I mean, I clearly remember some of our, but anyways, I'm just saying that, you know.
Meetings started, 5, they used to start at 5, so that was after hours. So I appreciate the dilemma, but I don't know.
I
This is
just wanna
this
have
is
the
like a full-time
expectation,
job.
I just wanna have the expectation that regular, you know, working people at traditional jobs can fully participate as trustees, should they choose to, without,
Well, then, what are you gonna do about the Thursday study sessions?
well, I don't know, if we get someone, I mean, it's sort of like Brian's been able to do is.
I run my
do
own
something,
business enough that I can
Yeah,
form my schedule around
but
it.
we'd have to make some accommodations, these are
Well,
conversations
we have to
I've
make
had with.
accommodations before the next election, so regular folks will know that they can run.
Well, these are conversations I've had with Dr. Prager about our scheduling.
Well, I think that that's
So,
something
but-
that should be a discussion that's held in public, so Dr.
Well-
Prager isn't sort of listening to one voice, so he's hearing all of us. So I think if we're gonna have that discussion in the future, it needs to be an agenda item. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it hasn't been, I certainly haven't been directing, it's been more, you know,
Isn't it an agenda item that we review the calendar for the board,
you know,
annual calendar at some point
right,
in
right.
December,
So
or
we
like so?
do that when we do have those, I mean, we have talked about study sessions before.
Okay, so to
things like
recap,
that, so.
I'm agreeing to be more careful, okay, and I like your saying that. I can't remember, sorry. I had 3 things that I thought was said, but.
Hey,
Eve, you've been quiet during this part of the discussion. Was there anything you wanted to add to any of this?
Don't worry, I'm bold. Let's do that.
Okay, just wanna make sure. Okay. just wanna make
Well,
sure.
I will say, I appreciate that there's an effort to make it so people, and everyone has a busy schedule, but I mean,
Right.
like, people at different stages of their working career participating on the board is a good part of the board diversity, I think, and so, I appreciate that you've tried to make it work for me.
Yeah,
It was
no.
hard for me when I came on the board the first, I don't know how many years it was,
You were
8
taking
or 9 years.
You were taking unpaid time from work.
I worked at the hardware store. They were very generous in allowing me to leave early, but I had to do it off the clock.
Well, I will say from my experience, I used to work for FIGMAT a little bit and visit school districts up and down the state, and this is one of the more involved boards traditionally, going back many years prior to this superintendent, than most. I mean, most school boards are not as involved and active as this board is. I mean, and that's probably credit to Dr. Prater, including one showing notes, study sessions, and, you know, because I think he sees the board as a really integral, important part of the learning organization, as opposed to just a group of people that get together on a Tuesday night and vote on things. And so, just so you know, I mean, this is, you're unusual in the sense that you're a pretty involved group of people in the daily runnings of the school district. You know, you really are. It's novel, so.
As evidenced by the fact that we are the only board in the county that holds expulsion hearings.
Right,
Because we have traditionally felt that that was
highly unusual.
really a responsibility of the board to allow students and families an opportunity at the sort of court of last resort.
I just think so this same discussion came up when we were going to about my taking time from when we were at the Inn at Morro Bay. And the exact opposite was reached. I should not bother staff during the day. I don't care how I do it, but it was the same discussion and to go to, I kind of feel like saying, I'm sorry I'm so involved. I mean, I'm gonna get worked up over it. This is a huge issue to deal with. I'll do the best I can. Okay.
Thank you. We haven't been to the Inn at Morro Bay since ever.
No, that's not true, we were there the
Were
first
we there
couple
with
years that I
Eric?
was on the board, yeah.
Not when I was.
No, this was a long
Long time ago, yeah. And land far, far
We had
away.
a parent who who managed the Inn at Morro Bay and let us meet there at no charge to the district, so those days are gone, so we
That's
have
when you retreated
chosen.
off of property.
Yeah, so we have chosen as a board to not run up any, have any costs associated with this,
Well,
so
wasn't-
for many years.
That's right, we
So it
have
wasn't-
these palatial
Yeah,
surroundings.
it wasn't, for me, it wasn't about cost, I didn't even know, it was about public perception, it was about PR. I mean, this,
Going away to
yeah, just,
All right, folks, is there anything else you have to talk about for the?
Rob and Matt, thank you.
Oh, yeah, I just, thank you. I'll summarize these notes, but I'll probably just want to include all these materials. I mean, you just have, it's all kind of here. But anyway, I'll summarize the day and give them to you two, or I'll send them to you, Ellen. You can edit, do whatever you want with them and they'll do whatever. So, all right, are you ready for a summer break? You don't get a summer break, you have to still meet during the summer.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet, you bet.